Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. In the video today, what I want to cover is, or just make a case for, partial range of motion exercises as it relates to improving running performance. So if we think about range of motion, if we look first, we'll take the squat for instance, and provide an example here. From a squat standpoint, still want to make sure people are able to move through that full range of motion. It's going to vary depending on range of motion, strength, previous injury, but I still want people to be able to possess the ability to get down into a squat, to be able to perform that movement pattern. However, if we think about just the demands of running, we don't actually go through a whole lot of range of motion. We do stress our ankles and big toe to a greater degree. However, when we look at the knees and the hips, there's not a whole lot of range of motion involved. So from a strength training standpoint, if we think about that principle of specificity, right? Incorporating movements and exercises that are specific to our end goal, which is to improve running performance, partial range of motion actually has a lot of merit. In fact, when we think about strength training, we might actually see more benefit and more carryover to the sport if we include things like box squats, which are less or more limited range of motion, step up from a lower step as opposed to a higher step. This more specifically fits the demands of running so we can see better results within the sport. So from a squatting standpoint, like I showed a second ago, want to be able to possess that ability to get into a squat. To me, that's showing us that we display good range of motion, good strength, stability, and function of the lower body, pelvis, and core to get into that position. However, from a training standpoint, if I'm trying to increase strength that then carries over to running, doing something like this, which is, we could call it if this was a box squat or some type of higher squat because we're not getting into a deep range of motion. So if I was setting up in here in this position and I was just sitting back and lowering down to the AirX pad and coming up, you can see compared to my deep squat a second ago, I'm not going through a whole lot of range of motion here at the knees or the hips. I'm actually in probably a much more similar position that I'd be in from a running standpoint, although that would be on a single leg. But the thing is, as we start to limit range of motion to a degree, we might actually be more specific to the demands of running, the range of motion encountered while running. But with less range of motion, we can then increase the resistance. So in this squat position, I'm not going super deep, so I can grab a nice heavy weight, whether it's a kettlebell, dumbbell, barbell on my back. I could load this up to a greater degree, and I could strengthen that range of motion that I move through while running. If I was gonna go all the way down to that deep squat, most likely the amount of resistance I would use would be far less, because it's such a greater range of motion. So playing around with different heights and depths and positions to find out what works for you. If the goal is to be better at running, possibly limiting your range of motion to get stronger throughout that mid-range of motion could be actually very beneficial. So that's one instance. The other instance is from a stability standpoint. If I turn this and we look at, first, let's look at the level of the pelvis and just the stability of me performing that movement. So I'm going to show you actually face away from the camera, right? From the beginning, this bench is so high, my pelvis is being tilted, right? If we're looking from a single leg stability standpoint, as we walk, as we run, as we do single leg activities, we want to be able to maintain levelness throughout the pelvis. The pelvis is going to drop a couple degrees, but we want to be able to prevent excessive drop at the pelvis, which causes instability in that lower limb. So the higher I go on a step, the more I'm actually putting myself in that position, which would lack stability. Okay, so from a specificity standpoint, this is something we might want to stay away from to a degree, because as I go through this, it's much more unstable. It's hard for me to then regain my pelvis, my position as I go up into that step up. And there's also a point as I come down here where I have to fall almost to a degree because the position of this bench is too high. What we could do is using something a little bit lower. Like if we have adjustable steps, if we have stairs at home, the first or second stair in the staircase, I'm in this position, right? Look at the difference. Look at the difference in the height here, right? 4, 5, 6 inches, who knows what that is, but quite a big difference. But the benefits are when I set up in position here from the beginning, I can focus on maintaining stability of the leg, maintain alignment and levelness through the pelvis. So as I work on moving through that range of motion, I can then control it with good stability. And we think about back to that original example of getting into that deep squat versus a regular squat. This position might actually be more specific to the demands of running. Running is a mid-range sport. We're not going through all of this range of motion. We're going through a limited range of motion, but we're able to control it from a stability standpoint and also be powerful and strong as we push off and propel the body forward. So this is just an example of how, yes, we still want the body to possess adequate or full range of motion to complete all of the tasks and activities that we incorporate on a regular basis. However, from a specificity standpoint, it actually might be beneficial to perform partial range of motion exercises, whether that's a part of your program or your entire program, because it's more specific to the demands of running. So there are some thoughts as it relates to partial range of motion and how that translates to running performance. Thank you.